Imagine you are awake in a cold, sterile room. They're tied up. Around them are men in white, smocked with notebooks. But they're not doctors to save you want. They are scientists, and they are yours. Experiment. This is not fiction. This is not an exaggeration. This has actually happened to thousands of people while the world looked away. Today we reveal one of the darkest and the best hidden secrets of the World War II. A story Japan has been hiding for decades tried. A story that even the cruelest Nazi experiments in the shadows. Welcome to the terrifying truth about Unit 731. Unit 731. A harmless name for what many historians as the cruelest human research program name. History. In 1932, Imperial Japan with the occupation of Manchuria in China, while the world looked at Europe. Something darker happened in the East, something that the world only decades later would fully. Shiro Ishii, a doctor and microbiologist of the Imperial Japanese Army, had a vision. But it was not a vision of healing. It was a vision of killing efficient, mass, invisible due to biological weapons. Ishii convinced the Japanese military leadership. In order to develop these weapons, he needed human test subjects. And so Unit 731 was born. In 1936, a huge complex was built in Pingfen near Harbin. It was officially an epidemic prevention and water purification department. A perfect cover. In truth, it was a death factory with over 150 buildings on 6 square kilometers. From the outside, it looked like an advanced research facility. Scientists in white, coats, modern laboratories, even residential complexes for over 3,000 employees. But at the heart of the complex, this happened unthinkable. Ishii led a team of brilliant scientists, doctors, biologists, chemists from prestigious universities. They were educated, cultured, civilized, and they became monsters. The Japanese military police provided a steady stream of people. Most of them were Chinese civilians, farmers, workers, ordinary people, at the wrong time, wrong place. Others were Korean prisoners, Russian soldiers, and Allies prisoners of war. The Japanese didn't call them people. They called her Maryuta, a Japanese word that means tree trunks, as if they were nothing but material, as if they had no names, no families, no souls. It is estimated that between 200,000 and 300,000 people in this system, we will never know the exact number. Japan systematically destroyed all evidence. Upon their arrival, the prisoners' numbers instead of names. They became small, cold cells locked, without windows. The term Maryuta was no coincidence. He should have employees desensitized. It's easier to stick to a log experimenting on a human. The facility was divided into divisions divided into bacteriological research, field trials, biological weapons, water pollution, production of bacterial cultures. These bureaucratic names conceal the truth. For ethical reasons and out of respect, I will not give the victims details of described experiments. Suffice it to say, scientists test the limits of what the human body can endure without anesthesia, without mercy. Unit 731 was not confined to the laboratory. They also tested their weapons in Chinese cities. Fountains were poisoned, food contaminated. In 1940, Japanese planes flew over Ningbo ceramic bombs with plague infected fleas. The result, an epidemic that killed hundreds. In August 1945, everything changed. The United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Soviet Union marched into Manchuria. It was clear to Ishii that the end had come. On the 9th in August, he was ordered to evacuation. But this was no ordinary evacuation. This was the systematic destruction of all evidence. All the remaining prisoners were killed. Documents were burned. Stack of research results. Photographs. Reports. The buildings were blown up. Ishii and his Scientists fled to Japan and went into hiding. When the Soviets reached the complex, it largely destroyed. But they found survivors and learned the true extent of the crimes. In 1949, they conducted the Chabarot trials and introduced 12 members court. But here comes the most shocking part. The Americans knew when the United States invaded Japan, they found Ishii. They interrogated him and his scientists. And then they made a decision which is controversial to this day. They gave them immunity. Why? The answer is as cold as the experiments himself. The U.S. wanted the data. The research results of Unit 731 were unique because they performed on real people had been. The American military thought this data could help us in the Cold War be useful. So they made a deal. The scientists handed over their research data. And in return, they were never charged, never brought to trial, never punished. Shiro Ishii died a free man in Tokyo in 1959. Many of his colleagues followed the war's successful careers. Some became respected doctors, professors, businessmen. Nazi war criminals in Nuremberg were charged, the perpetrators of Unit 731 without penalty. For decades, Unit 731 was hardly mentioned. Japan hid the story. The West ignored them because of the Cold War. First, in the 1980s, Japanese journalists and historians research. The historian Kai Ichitsan Aishi. We spent decades collecting documents, collect and interview witnesses. In 1981, he published a groundbreaking book. The existence of Unit 731 is undeniable. Proved. In 1985, the former location was museum opened. Survivors began to tell their stories. One of them was Tsam Mylan. She was brought to Unit 731 as a child. It was only in the 1990s that she spoke publicly about their experiences. In 1997, some former employees broke their silence. In interviews, they confessed their participation. They were now old men at the end of their life. Some were plagued by guilt. In 2002, a Japanese court ruled that for the first time officially, that UNET 731 had existed and had committed war crimes. To this day, the Japanese government no official apology pronounced. China and Korea continue to demand recognition and compensation. This remains a point of contention in the relations between these nations. What does the story of Unit 731 teach us today? Science without ethics is dangerous. The scientists of Unit 731 were no uneducated barbarians. They were graduates of the best universities, but her education did not make her better people. He gave them the tools to cause unimaginable suffering, modem, medical ethics, partly in response to these atrocities developed. The Nuremberg Code of 1947, basic principles. But these rules must be defended and be enforced. 2. Justice is not self-evident. The perpetrators did not escape because there was evidence. They escaped because powerful states decided that other interests were more important. 3. Dehumanization leads to atrocities. The term Mahoto is used to describe perpetrators desensitize. When we see people as less human look, leaves open the door to indescribable cruelty. 4. Memory is resistance to that forget. For decades, Japan has been trying to secure UNET 731, conceal the surviving languages. Historians researched, and slowly the truth came to light. Today, the former location is an impressive museum. The ruins of some buildings have been preserved. Silent witnesses of what happened here. The museum is held annually by hundreds of thousands visited. It is a place of education and admonition. The story of Unit 731 is dark, disturbing, and true. Died between 1932 and 1945, hundreds of thousands of innocent people, a secret program, the limits of human cruelty redefined, And the perpetrators? Most have never been punished. That is the bitter truth. Justice is not guaranteed. History is made by the victors written. And sometimes the darkest chapters fall through the cracks. But by remembering, let's talk about it, by not letting the victims forget, let's honor their memory. Unit 731 should not be forgotten. The victims deserve their stories told. If you find this video important, historical to facts, leave one thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more documentation on the hidden history of the Second World War. And remember, the darkest chapters of history, knowing is the first step to make sure you never repeat.